Mixed reactions are pouring in after the presidential candidate of the Labour Party, Peter Obi, called on President Bola Ahmed Tinubu to consider the path taken by British Prime Minister Keir Starmer and step aside if leadership is no longer delivering results. Speaking on today's edition of the morning show on Arise News, senior broadcaster Rufai Oseni and veteran journalist Dr. Reuben Abati shared sharply divided views on the matter. According to Rufai Oseni, Nigerian leaders rarely resign even when things are going wrong. He argued that unlike in countries such as Britain, leaders in Nigeria tend to hold on to power. He added that this is not always out of love for the country, but often due to attachment to position and influence. He also reminded viewers that during past political moments, members of the APC, including Tinubu himself, had once called on former President Goodluck Jonathan to resign during difficult times. Dr. Reuben Abati, on the other hand, took a different position. He explained that Nigeria's political system and culture are not the same as Britain's. In his view, Peter Obi's suggestion may sound ideal, but it does not easily fit into Nigeria's political reality. Now, this conversation has triggered debate across the country, raising deeper questions about leadership, accountability, and political culture in Nigeria. Before we break this down, watch this video first. I will be right back to share my full analysis and what this really means for Nigeria's political space.
Ayo. You see, the reason why people don't resign in Nigeria, a Ghanaian professor, Professor George Aite, wrote a book, Defeating Dictators in Africa, and he called a group of people the retinue of retainers. These are the people that want Nigerian or African leaders to remain in power for their own selfish benefits. The reason why leaders don't resign in Nigeria, or they don't want to hear the word resignation, is because of the resource and the juiciness of the office. It's not that they care about Nigeria too much. You see, in the UK, you hear Keir Starmer speaking English, the country I love. How many of our leaders truly love the country? The reason why they are gunning for political position is because of their pockets. That's why there is no Nigerian leader that doesn't become wealthier or better economically after he leaves the position. If they truly love the country, they will not do politics, they'll go and set up NGO. So they don't love the country. It's about them. And that's why when you tell them that you are not doing well, I mean, is it you and I that went to kill people in Bokos again? As I yesterday was 18 people, now it's grown to 25. Is it you and I? Yes, we celebrate the military because they've released 47 people. But is it you and I that captured the kids and put them in the bush in Oyo? And they're trying to get them out, they've not gotten them out. Is it you and I that did Papri? Is it you and I that did KB? Are these not failing? Is it you and I that ensured that there was a killing slab in Woro that we've moved on from? Can we be mentioning all the bloodshed? But when you say these things now, they will say, no, you are childish. So the question I just want to ask Mr. Barry and Onuga is, was the APC also childish when they were calling for Jonathan's resignation? Because let's do it 1-1. No cheating. Balenciaga. Was the APC also childish when they were calling for Jonathan's resignation? Because all the things they said Jonathan should resign for, it has happened under them too. Today, I'm sure my big guy here, Dr. Abati, is just smiling in his mind. He's vindicated because that time, hey, they attacked you. I felt for you that period. There's nothing they did say about you. There's nothing they did right. But look at them. It's happening under their government today. Ayo, is he only resign that Obi say that they are saying is childish? This was the same APC that said they will call for a parallel government if they don't win election. You know what parallel government is? Anarchy. They said it, APC. They will call for a parallel. They didn't only say it. They went to defend it on television because they don't win election. The other day, Patutomi called for shadow government. They've gone to court. They said it. If we don't win this election, parallel government, hit up the policy. So Obi said, oh, they should resign because they are not there. They say it's puerile. Speaking big grammar. Puerile. Let me tell them what is puerile this morning. What is puerile? It's a government that has not reacted to the killing of the people in Woro. That's what is puerile. It's a government that has not told us who ordered the military to leave KB before the girls were abducted. That's what is puerile. Oh, I will tell them what is puerile this morning. What is puerile is the kids that are abducted in the bush in Borno and Ibadan. That's what is very puerile to me. You know why it's puerile? Because the government is supposed to have monopoly of violence. And when the government cannot show its monopoly of violence, it is puerile to me. What is puerile is the farmers that are being killed in Bokos again. Bokos is one of the food baskets of this country. Bokos churns out a lot of potatoes and other crops. That's what is puerile. What is puerile to me is the bomb that went off in Mushin, and we are saying don't worry about it. I will worry. Because it could have been you or I. Everybody, you and I, everybody go to Mushin to go and get good deals. We could have been shopping in the market then and the bomb went off. This thing has come close to home and you say I should not worry. Why your investigation? Where are those that planted the bomb? Have you showed me the people? And you're telling me somebody says, so you are calling somebody puerile. That is what is puerile as far as I'm concerned. What is puerile is the suffering of a lot of Nigerians. This is not puerile and childish for a country that has so much resource and people are suffering this much. And the people are in pain and in penury. For me, that is what is puerile. So now...
I have a slightly different opinion with the opinion expressed by Mr. Peter Obi, the NDC presidential candidate, trying to say that with Kestama having resigned over questions about accountability, loss of popularity, confidence, and all of that, leadership failure, he also said that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu should follow that example and also resign. My argument is that in theory, yes, you can talk about responsibility, accountability, and responsibility. But we're in the province of pragmatic politics, pragmatism in politics, and difference in systems. In terms of difference in political cultures, the political culture that we have here in Nigeria is not the same that they have in Britain. Here, the Nigerian president is a monarch. We're running a presidential system that makes him a monarch. And that is why, as you have seen across the country, the panegyric on your mandate will stand is almost replacing the national anthem in the reckoning of APC supporters. I've been in the corridors of power. I've seen governors. I've seen ministers. I've seen otherwise important people kneeling down in front of the Nigerian president and crawling on all fours. And that has been the case since 1960. But in the case of President Jonathan, he will tell people, please stand up, stand up, stand up, stand up. I'm a human being. I'm not, more than a human being. But that is Nigeria's political culture. So here in Nigeria, you are not likely to find the kind of situation that you found yesterday in the United Kingdom. I made the point yesterday, and I repeat it again, that such factors as ethnicity, religion, divisiveness, and sycophancy will have made it impossible for a president of Nigeria to come forward and say, I want to resign from my position. How many persons have resigned from the National Assembly, despite the fact that they have a lot of questions to answer there? How many ministers have taken the courage, summoned the courage to just walk away? So the political culture is different. The system is different. And the question to ask is, would Mr. Peter Obi himself, were he to be in the same circumstances, will he just resign? No, he will not. Indigbo will come, to be specific, and say, you are not there on your own. You are representing us. It's a paid propagandist in the media. We also say, no, we don't think that this is the right thing to do, doing their work as agents of a politician. Other people, particularly the obedience, the party that it belongs to, will tell him that you cannot resign. This is Nigeria. It belongs to all of us. Whether you are popular or not, We will do it together. So I see in Mr. Peter Obi's statement a tinge of populism. So it's just a populist thing. And Mr. Peter Obi himself knows that if he were to become president of Nigeria, he's not going to resign because some people in Lagos or in Osogbo say he's no longer popular. We are not happy with him. Or another opposition party is saying, I'm the Nigel Farage of Nigeria. This is reform Nigeria. We don't want this again. So that's that about that, as far as I'm concerned. And now, very quickly on the issue of the UK, Andy Boham. Yes, he took his seat as MP yesterday. Yes, I was raising the question yesterday that, yeah, it may look like a coronation, but there are other elements in the Labour Party who are saying that, no, they need to test his political ideas. But he has, you know, the majority of Labour MPs behind him. If he succeeds with that popularity, he may just get there by July 17, now that a timetable of July 9 to July 16 has been prescribed by the governing board of the Labour Party. Angela Rayner has not shown interest. Wes Streeting was one of the first persons to say he supports Andy Boham, so showing that there may be no real contest. But there are persons who are asking Ian Kans and also Jones to step up and stand and challenge, Andy Boham, even if the only purpose.
When we look at this conversation carefully, it is not just about one statement, and it is not just about one interview. What we are seeing here is a reflection of a deeper political struggle in Nigeria, a struggle about leadership, responsibility, pressure, and what citizens believe should happen when a government is under criticism. The comment from Peter Obi touches a very sensitive idea in politics, the idea that leaders should step down when they feel they are no longer delivering results. In some political systems around the world, this idea is not strange. In fact, in parts of Europe, resignation is sometimes treated as a normal response to public pressure, parliamentary defeat, or loss of confidence. That is why the reference to Keir Starmer becomes important in this discussion. The United Kingdom operates within a system where accountability is deeply tied to party confidence, parliamentary pressure, and public trust. Leaders are expected to respond quickly when political legitimacy weakens. But the key question is this: can that same expectation be applied directly to Nigeria? That is where the disagreement between Rufai Oseni and Dr. Reuben Abati becomes very important. On one side, Rufai Oseni is speaking from a place of frustration that many Nigerians understand very well. His argument is simple. Nigerian political leaders, in many cases, do not resign even when public dissatisfaction is high. Instead, they often remain in office until the end of their tenure, no matter how intense criticism becomes. He also raised a strong historical point. He reminded viewers that members of the current ruling party once demanded resignation from former President Goodluck Jonathan during periods of national difficulty. That comparison is important because it highlights a recurring pattern in Nigerian politics. When opposition groups are not in power, resignation becomes a loud demand. But when they are in power, the same idea becomes rare. This is where the conversation moves from personal opinion to political memory. Nigerians remember these moments, and because they remember, statements like this always trigger debate. Rufai's deeper point is not just about resignation. It is about consistency. He is questioning whether political actors apply the same standard when roles change, and that question is one of the most sensitive in democratic politics. On the other side, Dr. Reuben Abati is approaching the issue from a structural and comparative perspective. His argument is that Nigeria is not Britain. The systems are different. The political culture is different. The expectations are different. This is an important point because political systems do not operate in isolation. In Britain, the system is parliamentary. Leadership is tied directly to the confidence of Parliament. A prime minister can step down quickly when internal party pressure rises. Nigeria, however, operates a presidential system. The president is elected for a fixed term, Removal is not as simple as stepping down due to political pressure. There are constitutional processes, such as impeachment, legal requirements, and institutional steps that must be followed. So when Dr. Abati says it is not practical in Nigeria's context, he is pointing to system design, not just personal preference. But this is where the debate becomes more interesting. Because even if the system is different, the question of moral leadership still remains. Should a leader consider stepping aside when public trust is heavily weakened, even if the Constitution does not force it? That is the emotional core of this debate. Now, let us step back and look at the broader picture. In many African democracies, leadership turnover is often tied more to elections than resignation culture. Once a leader wins an election, the expectation is that they will serve the full term unless removed through constitutional crisis or electoral defeat. This creates a political environment where resignation is rare, even in moments of controversy. So when Peter Obi introduces the comparison with Britain, he is not just making a legal argument, he is making a moral and governance argument. He is challenging the idea of what accountability should look like. Supporters of this view often believe that leadership should not only be about holding office, it should also be about recognizing when public confidence has dropped too far. Critics, however, argue that such expectations can destabilize a system like Nigeria's. They believe that frequent calls for resignation can weaken governance, create instability, and encourage political pressure tactics instead of structured constitutional processes. This is where the disagreement becomes layered, because both sides are not entirely wrong. Rufai Oseni's concern reflects public frustration. Many citizens feel that leaders do not respond quickly enough to economic hardship, insecurity, or policy dissatisfaction. From that angle, resignation becomes a symbol of accountability. Dr. Abati's concern reflects institutional reality. Nigeria's system is not designed around resignation culture. It is designed around fixed-term leadership and electoral accountability. So the real question becomes this: should Nigeria move closer to a resignation-based accountability culture, or should it remain strictly within its constitutional structure and wait for elections to correct leadership decisions? This is not a small question. It is a deep governance debate. Another important layer in this conversation is political memory. When Rufai Oseni mentions past political behavior, especially the calls made during Goodluck Jonathan's administration, it brings up a common issue in Nigerian politics: the issue of shifting standards depending on who is in power. This is one of the reasons political conversations in Nigeria become so heated. Citizens remember past statements, politicians remember past positions, and journalists often act as the bridge that brings these contradictions back into public discussion. In that sense, this interview is not just about today. It is about political history repeating itself in different forms. Now let us also consider the public reaction. When statements like this go public, the audience often divides into three groups. The first group agrees with Peter Obi's position. They believe leadership should be more responsive, and that stepping down is a valid moral option when governance is not working. The second group agrees with Dr. Abati's position. They believe the system should be respected as it is designed, and that change should come through elections, not pressure-driven resignation calls. The third group focuses more on Rufai Oseni's argument. They are less concerned with legal systems and more concerned with consistency and fairness in political behavior. This is why the discussion is trending. It sits at the intersection of law, morality, history, and public emotion. But there is another angle that is often missed. Leadership stability is important for economic and institutional planning. Investors, civil servants, and international partners often look for predictable governance structures. Constant political uncertainty can affect long-term planning. At the same time, accountability is also important. Without accountability, leadership can become disconnected from public needs. So the challenge is balance. A strong democracy must find a way to hold leaders accountable without creating instability, and also maintain stability without ignoring public dissatisfaction. This is the tension at the heart of this entire debate. Now, bringing it back to the personalities involved. Peter Obi has built a political identity around reform-driven messaging, efficiency, and accountability. His supporters often see him as someone who challenges traditional political norms. Keir Starmer represents a political system where leadership transitions can happen through internal party pressure and parliamentary mechanisms rather than fixed electoral cycles alone. Arise News continues to serve as a major platform where these political ideas are debated in real time by journalists and analysts with different perspectives. Rufai Oseni represents a more direct, emotionally connected critique of political behavior, often reflecting public frustration. Dr. Reuben Abati represents a more institutional and comparative analysis of political systems. When you place all of these voices together, what you see is not confusion. You see democracy in motion, you see disagreement, you see interpretation, and you see competing ideas about how governance should work. So what does this all mean in the end? It means Nigeria is still negotiating its political identity. Is accountability something that happens only at the ballot box? Or should it also include moral decisions like resignation when leadership is questioned heavily? That question is not answered yet, and maybe that is why conversations like this keep happening, because every time it comes up, it forces the country to reflect again on what it expects from its leaders. And that is why this interview matters, not because of one statement, but because of the bigger conversation it opens. About power, about responsibility, and about the future of political accountability in Nigeria. Continuing from the last point, because when we strip everything back, what remains is a very simple but difficult truth. Democracies are not judged only by how elections are conducted, but also by how leaders respond when things start to go wrong between elections. In some countries, that response includes resignation. In others, it does not. And in Nigeria's case, that tension is still unresolved. Now, let us go deeper into what this means for the average Nigerian watching this debate. For many citizens, the idea of a leader stepping down voluntarily feels almost unrealistic. This is not because people do not want accountability, but because past political experience has shaped expectations. Over time, the system has trained citizens to expect that leaders will complete their terms unless forced out through legal or electoral processes. That is why statements like the one made by Peter Obi often create strong reactions. It introduces a different political imagination, one where leadership is not only about winning power, but also about knowing when to release it. But then, we return again to the argument raised by Dr. Reuben Abati. His position reminds us that systems matter. Nigeria is not built on a parliamentary confidence system like the UK. It is built on a fixed-term presidential structure. That means the rules of exit are clearly defined, and resignation under political pressure is not part of the normal expectation. So now the debate becomes sharper. Is leadership change only a legal matter, or is it also a moral one? This is where Rufai Oseni's frustration becomes important again. His argument is not purely legal, it is emotional and historical. He is pointing at a pattern where leaders, across different administrations, have often resisted stepping down, even when public dissatisfaction is loud. And when he brings up past political moments involving the APC and former President Goodluck Jonathan, he is not just making a comparison, he is pointing to a cycle where political actors shift their standards depending on whether they are in power or not. This is one of the reasons political debates in Nigeria often feel repetitive. The same arguments return, but the roles change. Now, let us look at another layer that is often ignored in public discussion. Resignation in politics is not only about pressure, it is also about structure and consequences. In systems like the UK, resignation can be followed by internal party replacement without collapsing governance. The system is designed to absorb leadership change quickly. In Nigeria, however, Leadership transition outside elections can create uncertainty. There is always concern about stability, continuity, and power balance. That is why the system prioritizes elections and constitutional processes over informal resignation expectations. So both sides of this argument are responding to real concerns. One side is responding to accountability and public frustration. The other side is responding to system stability and constitutional design. Now, if we step back and look at the bigger democratic picture, we begin to see something important. Every democracy must balance two forces. First is accountability, which demands that leaders respond to citizens, accept criticism, and sometimes step aside. Second is stability, which demands that governments remain consistent enough to function effectively over time. If accountability becomes too weak, leadership becomes disconnected from the people. If stability becomes too weak, governance becomes unpredictable. So the challenge is not choosing one over the other. The challenge is finding where the balance sits. This is why the comments from Keir Starmer's political system are relevant only as comparison, not as direct instruction. What works in one system may not transfer neatly into another system without adjustments. And this is where Dr. Abati's caution becomes important. He is not dismissing the idea of accountability. He is questioning the practicality of importing political behavior from one system into another without considering structural differences. At the same time, Rufai Oseni's argument keeps pressure on the emotional reality of governance. Because even if the system is different, citizens still feel the impact of leadership decisions in real time. Inflation, insecurity, unemployment, and hardship are not theoretical issues. They are lived experiences. So when people call for resignation, it is often not about constitutional theory. It is about frustration with outcomes. Now, let us also consider how this debate affects political communication in Nigeria. Statements like this often travel far beyond the studio. They become clips, headlines, and social media debates. And in that process, the message often becomes sharper, more emotional, and more divided than it was in the original conversation. Supporters of Peter Obi will often interpret his statement as a call for higher standards in leadership. Critics will interpret it as unrealistic or politically symbolic. Supporters of Dr. Abati's position will see it as grounded in institutional reality. Critics will see it as defending the status quo. And Rufai Oseni's remarks often sit in the middle, reflecting public frustration, while also provoking political reflection. So what is the final takeaway from all this? It is that Nigeria is still in a long conversation about what accountability really means. Is accountability only about voting every 4 or 5 years? Or should it also include ongoing responsibility during a leader's term? There is no single agreed answer yet. But what is clear is this. These debates are not going away. In fact, they are becoming more frequent as citizens become more vocal and as political awareness increases. And that is why this interview matters beyond the personalities involved. Because it is not just about Peter Obi. It is not just about Tinubu. It is not even just about Rufai Oseni or Dr. Reuben Abati. It is about a country trying to define what good leadership looks like in its own context. And until that definition becomes clearer, conversations like this will continue to spark strong opinions, divided reactions, and national reflection.